Hello there, Joanne Butler from OURganic Gardens. It's the first day of October and the start of reuse month, where every few days I'm going to be bringing you some videos to show you what we reuse in the garden. So instead of throwing things away, we reuse them to do different jobs in the garden. So today I'm going to show you how to reuse your plants. Now this may sound like a very strange thing to do, but at this time of year we take lots of cuttings from plants to make new plants. And specifically what I'll be doing now at the end of September is taking rose cuttings. So I'm just going to show you how I'm going to take some rose cuttings, and I also use things when I'm doing this that I've reused as well. So first up, what we need is our potting compost. As you can see, I've reused buckets as well around the garden. So this is an old bird feed bucket. And then this, now you'd have to buy this, but if you can't get it, you can use some sand. This is called perlite, and I use this and along with the soil. It just helps the cuttings when they're being taken. And I mix probably 1 part compost to half of the perlite. And then I use just a kitchen fork. I find this a really good tool to use around the garden, and I give it a mix. Be careful when you're using the perlite, because sometimes the fine dust that comes off it can make you cough. And if you don't have perlite, you can just use normal potting compost mixed in with some sand. It just helps with the drainage, and it also kind of helps the little roots when they're starting off. Okay, so I've got my potting compost ready, or rooting compost ready. And the next thing I'm going to do is get a little pot. I prefer to use terracotta pots when you're doing this, but you can also use plastic pots. And the one thing that I would urge you to do, instead of buying new plastic pots, go along to your garden centre and ask them to would they have any old pots that they could give you, because they're always throwing them out or recycling them. So sometimes they have a lot of pots that you can go and get and use them. So instead of buying new, I would always encourage you to try and get second hand if possible. In the case of the cuttings, I prefer the terracotta pots, however, and I'm just going to fill the terracotta pot up like this. Okay. Give it a little squeeze down, but not too much. You want to keep some air in there. Okay, now moving on to rose cuttings by the wind. So when you're taking cuttings, you want to get something that's disease free at least. I find it really difficult to get rose cuttings that haven't been damaged by the wind, but the disease, as you can see here, you don't want that, and then there's a little bit of damage up here, so we don't want that. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut above a node. So a node in a plant is a point of growth. So as you can see just up here, before the damage, actually it's here. So I'm just going to cut above the node, just in like this. And I've created a little slant as well. I'll do it again here. Okay, so I've created a little slant there. And then I come down, there's one node, there's another node. And I'm going to go, there's other little small buds here that you can't see, or nodes, sorry. And I'm just going to cut below a node. So at the top, it's above a node. At the bottom, it's just below. The nodes are also the points of growth where roots will come out of as well. But what you can also do is just give the bottom of your rose cutting a little scrape to encourage roots to start coming out there. So you're damaging it a little bit. Okay, now what I'm going to do then, in a little jar that I repurpose all my jars, I've put some water, and then I've put some willow. So willow is a plant that we would see quite a lot. We have a lot of it around the garden, and it's actually got great growth hormones. So by cutting willow and putting it into water, I have created hormone liquid for free. So when I have prepared my cuttings, I just pop them in like that into the willow water, and I'll let that sit for a little while. Once you have prepared all your cuttings and have them in the willow water for a little while, you can start to plant them up within your potting compost. Just put them in, make sure that they get a few of the nodes, the growing points into the soil, and then just press down gently. Okay, and before I go, I just want to show you how I make a protection for the plants if they do go outside. This is a little rose cutting that I took earlier. It's actually from one of my first roses. I don't know what you call it, but I just call it my first rose. And what I do is, these bottles come in very handy. So you'll see me using these 5-litre bottles quite a bit. I haven't bought them specifically for this. People give me bottles. So when people know that you're a gardener, you will get the odd email or text message to say that someone's got loads of bottles. Would you like them? And I always say yes, because these 5-litre bottles come in really handy for lots of different things around the garden. And what I would do in this instance is that I would cut the plastic bottle in half using a sharp knife. Now, if you are under a certain age, please do get some help when doing this. You can use a sharp knife or you can use some scissors. And I will cut the whole way around the bottle until I have this. And this actually makes a perfect little greenhouse. But what I'm also going to do is I'm going to cut a little hole in the top. And you just take a bit of pressure to that. If it's giving a lot of resistance at that stage, then please do be careful using the knife. So with a few holes at the top, and then in some pots you'll find that it fits perfectly round, and it's a mini greenhouse.